work, 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 work. It's time to get to work, work, work. It's time to get to work, work, work. It's time to get to work, work, work. Oh, this is interesting. As I'm looking at the live stream preview, it's like way the heck behind. Very strange. And yet OBS repeats a 1 second delay in the stream. Well, if that's all Greek to you, don't feel bad. It's really not your problem. It's some of the niggly little details associated with live streaming. Anyway, if you really want to get a good laugh when it comes to the whole problems of live streaming, I suggest you go to conspiracy theorist and expert on ancient aliens David Wilcock's YouTube channel, where he never does a live stream. The last live stream I mean, it doesn't have all kinds of technical issues. The last live stream I checked in, because old Dave hadn't posted anything in 3-4 months. Hey, Dirt. He'd gone inexplicably silent because I don't know why, but I would gather maybe it had something to do with every single prediction he made throughout the year 2020, because he was just gobbling down the QAnon conspiracy. He was on board in a big way, and every single time he said anything was going to happen, it then didn't happen. His credibility has been harmed. Now, his credibility has actually been helped most recently because the federal government has in fact come out and admitted, yes, indeed, actually, the whole UFO thing kind of is a thing, actually. So you can chase that rabbit if you want to. But anyway, so in the last live stream, David Wilcock comes on, and he announces right at the beginning that we've completely redone our system, our whole, we've updated our gear, everything's going to work great finally. And he's got this slapback echo in his audio that is like really got the guy rattled. Well, that's a whole nother story, isn't it? Okay, so our job is not to talk about ancient aliens and UFOs. Our job is to talk about animation. So I came back on live streaming yesterday, last night, and so it was a pretty productive day yesterday. We got, boom, I'm looking at the timeline here, and it looks like 16 seconds done. This is one of the downsides of animation, is it is a bit of a slow process. So anyway, here's where we're at. We've got to go. You'll notice there's a little bit of a difference between what's in the storyboard and what's in the Tahoma files that we ostensibly are going to reuse. First 6.5 minutes are recently animated, and so now what we have is the section in the middle. Wow, only 7 minutes. Wow. Okay, so we're making some good progress here. I'm kind of a little gobsmacked. I'm a little gobsmacked. The light at the end of the tunnel is in fact in view. So this is what I'm thinking. I kind of like that drawing. I think I might go ahead and reuse it, and let's rock and roll. So today what we're going to do is, as I've been doing the last few days, I think I'm just going to favor staying in Tahoma as much as possible, as opposed to Krita. One big reason here is that, okay, and by the way, I need to open up shot number 514 and then kind of make a decision for real on whether I'm going to reuse this shot or go ahead and redraw her. Honestly, there's probably not a good reason to redraw her. What I would suggest doing in this shot is probably tightening up the camera a bit. So I'm going to resave this immediately. This is what I do. Once you've got a character rigged up, it's kind of like the idea of puppet animation. You know, once you've got it rigged up, obviously, in this modern age of um, prudent asset reuse, you probably want to go ahead and just keep using the same assets in shot after shot after shot. Okay, so when I do that very thing, what I do is I immediately save the previous file where everything got rigged up under a different name, and then also make sure that the render settings are set properly. So this should be 517. Delete, change that into a 7, and we are ready to rock. Okay, so in this case, let's look at what this looks like rendered. Okay, what I'm thinking is, why don't we crop this in a bit for this shot? I'm gonna say, I'm just gonna put an animation key on the camera. Okay, so that's really interesting. What we're seeing happen here is extremely interesting and a little frightening. So I'm gonna just keep hitting undo. Okay, so the idea here is we are cropping in with the camera, and really all I intended was something along those lines. And that didn't really have the desired effect. Did it? No, it didn't. Oh, I know why. My bad. Yep, absolutely silly of me. Okay, so what did I do wrong? Normally, if I'm going to crop in a shot, what I will do is either crop in that level itself by simply scaling it up a little bit, or create a dummy layer, like a level that doesn't have any art in it, and yeah, good point about being in rendered view. However, that's not the mistake I made. The mistake I made was that, like, if I made a dummy layer and parented all the other layers to it, so I can take the dummy layer, scale it up, which is effectively the same thing as zooming in. Okay, well, there's a catch. There's a catch. If you're going to do it with the camera, you don't want to scale the camera. That's what I did wrong. I scaled the camera. What I should have done is clicked on position and then hit control so that I am moving the camera in the z-axis. That's what I meant to do. So sorry about that, guys. That was a silly mistake. And thank you, Razled, for chiming in with the observation that I was still in rendered view. I don't think that actually would have made a difference, though, as far as the problem I was having. So anyway, got that fixed. Okay, so now the question becomes, you know, what are we going to have to draw versus, you know, what can we get away with essentially puppet animation, and what do we need to delete as far as holdovers from shot number 514 in order to kind of move forward with 517. A good first step would be to look at the script. Okay, so what happened was, are we still in preview mode? We are. So let's jump over here. So what happened was the prince is like, I'm looking forward to, he's really out of his element. So TNR raises one eyebrow, and then Mel is overhearing this because he's out behind the tent. So what's the next thing that happens is Tianara is essentially helping the prince. She's going to help him out here. So she chimes in and says, "It's an honor to bring our families and kingdoms together." Okay? So that's very nice of her because she does think it's mildly cute and a little sad that the prince is so tongue-tied at the moment. So it would appear to me that what we want to do is let's push the eye blink down here so that it's down where we're going to want it. And then so let's say oftentimes what would happen is you've got the prior scene that ends in a certain position, let's say like this, and then it makes perfect sense to begin the next shot from there. And so what I'll often do is take these keyframes and just drag them down to where the starting point's going to be. Drag, drag, drag. And this keyframe, I would assume I can just delete it. Okay, no, I can't because that gets her eyebrows in position. So I'm actually gonna, I think I'll just keep them both for the moment because I assume she's gonna go from this to this. She's gonna soften a bit, in other words. Okay, so she squinted her eyes too, and I'm wondering where that, oh, that drawing is number 54. Okay, so that means that I can now go Alt up arrow and just delete all these frames. So the reason I moved those animation keyframes down is so that I didn't delete them because that would destroy the initial positioning of everything in the shot. Hope that makes sense. It might not make a lot of sense. It might be very confusing indeed. And if it is, I apologize, but unfortunately, that, as William F. Buckley would say, in his erudite manner, that is unfortunately what we have to contend with, is it not? Okay, so that's that. Jumping back, checking the chat. Why, there's nothing going on in the chat, and we only have 2 concurrent viewers. Where the heck is the entire world? I thought I was so popular. You know? It's like you go do this stuff. Why can't I be like PewDiePie? You know? Why can't I be young and handsome and funny? Why? Why do I have to be just a boring, unpopular dude that makes cartoons? Okay, so what we're going to do here... Okay, I think this is actually kind of nice. I'm going to hit Alt down arrow, which, by the way, those to remove entire, like if you want to take an entire horizontal line across your X sheet and remove the frames, which is what I'm doing here, basically. It's a really quick way to edit, to sort of ripple edit your shot. If you're an OpenToonz person, Alt up arrow, Alt down arrow, as I recall, are default hotkeys. So they just work. They're already set up. However, if you're using Tahoma2d, which I am here, you probably need to go into Configure Shortcuts and set the shortcuts for the Alt up arrow and Alt down arrow. And what exactly is that operation that I'm doing called? Actually, I don't even know. Edit, I can't remember. Here we go. Insert frame and remove frame. So what I would do is go into my hotkeys, configure shortcuts, and I would go insert. And indeed there it is, and then set the hotkey for Alt up and Alt down. Or whatever hotkey you want. Anyway, that gives you the ability to hit like Alt down arrow, Alt up arrow, and quickly edit your entire timing, you know, which is really quite useful. You move everything as a group. All right, so with that, okay, this is a good example of what we call bad animation. See how flowy that is? How slow and flowy? That looks stupid. Nobody's eyebrow ever moved slowly like that. Okay, so if you're a bad animator, then you think that looks good. And you get really excited about moving things all the time in your animation simply because you can. Just because we can. We can move things, so let's move things. No, that's not what we do here. Here we're a little more concerned with good acting and storytelling. So that means she's going to kind of hold on that frame for a moment so that our audience can digest her kind of attitude, which, by the way, I'm going to amend slightly. I actually think the attitude we're talking about should be exaggerated a little more. So I'm going to hit the X key to go into plastic tool mode, animate, and what I'm going to do is actually take this eyebrow and raise it up even higher. I'm gonna exaggerate this motion. Now I need to stretch this bone, so I'm going to click keep distance so that I can actually pull this down like that. Gives me a little more flexibility. I can do some stretching, right? And I would say that feels more like what I had in mind. Okay? Now, if she actually did this, I'm going to say this is going to be a 2-frame motion, and there would be an eye blink, presumably. as we can see here, by the way, it does appear that the eyes are, or the eyelids, are not piped through the plastic tool. That means that I'm going to have to manually animate the position of the eyelids, or I need to consider going ahead and piping them through the plastic tool so that they hold their position when the head moves around. It's a judgment call. You would think it would always make sense to pipe them through the plastic tool, and in point of fact, usually that's true, but sometimes it's actually more efficient and simple to just keep things separate. Now in this case, I don't expect to really do anything else with this column except the eyelids. So therefore, I'm not going to be doing any more drawing. The reason I mention that is that once you take a layer or a level and you pipe it through the plastic tool, you can no longer draw directly onto this level and create new keys in the X sheet, because the brushes to draw do not work once everything's piped through the plastic tool. There are technical reasons why that's a very good thing and makes all the sense in the world, but you might find it rather disconcerting. So if you were going to try to draw in this level, you would actually have to go over to the level strip, which of course is problematic, because if you were drawing, let's say, a new position for these eyelids, you kind of want to have the head visible underneath it so you can kind of sort of see what you're doing. This is the dance we dance. This is the story of our lives. The fact that we must juggle pros, cons, ups and downs. Okay, so Razlad says, I'm working on my final scene in the animatic. Okay, so I'm going to surreptitiously, in another window here, actually look up Razlad, because I want to see what Razlad's up to. And under his videos, interesting stuff. So it looks like you're doing the grease pencil thing. That's cool. And I would say, yeah, I mean, some of the stuff looks pretty cool. Very modern, definitely. So I'm looking at one of Razlad's speed paints, and good stuff, interesting stuff. Yeah, if you can believe it, I was actually this morning before I came online. Okay, and you're using Krita too. Okay, good stuff, definitely. That's cool. Before I came on today, I actually was fiddling around with the grease pencil again, back in old Blender 2.79, and I mean, it's pretty funny because back in the day, I posted, if you were to go to BlendedPlanet.com blog, if you go to my blog, there's a very comprehensive article that I wrote a couple years ago on like every trick in the book for using the Blender 2.79 grease pencil and actually being able to get real work done, you know. And when I go back and review that, I'm like, man, I really grokked it out like in a big way. I was doing some pretty cool stuff with the 2.79 grease pencil. But at the end of the day, the reality was, I even had some unflattering comments for OpenToonz in that article that I probably should edit out. But at the end of the day, Krita and OpenToonz, I just have been able to get more better work done with these tools, and ultimately I don't care what tool I use. I just want to get my work done. I'm focused on the cartoon and the character and the story. So anyway, what are we going to do? I'm making funny voices today for one simple reason. The simple reason is that people continually ask me, they say, David, well, they don't say David, they say BlendedPlanet, or they usually say Dave. But they say, Dave, what are you going to do for voices? How are you going to find the voices for your show? Folks, I've been a voice actor for 30 years. And I've written and directed multiple feature films. And I have a lot of friends who are actors. So, and you know, and quite a few of them have really nice voices too. Now, one of the trends in the last, you know, let's say 30 years or whatever, maybe 40 or 50 years, is that in the early days of cinema, a lot of your actors in film actually came from radio. So it was almost axiomatic that if someone was in a film, they probably had a great voice. That completely changed in the last 50 years. Now you've got actors like, I'm just spitballing off the top of my head, but look at a guy like Tom Cruise. And his voice is mediocre at best, right? But it's become a lot more about the look than the sound, I suppose. Hey, look, here comes Valerie. Valerie's passing through. Do we see her in the... Oh, we just caught one molecule. We got one molecule of her head in the webcam as she passed by. Yeah, Razlad's making a point about... Well, yeah, and your channel, I mean, you're just getting started. I mean, it's all good. Recording in full HD. I'm not going to really get into that, but you definitely want to click on the settings in OBS and very carefully grok through them and make sure you understand what they do. Okay, so what we need to do here is I think we need to take her initial position and make it a little bit more... Oops, we got a little problem here. And by the way, this is an interesting thing I should mention. If you want to know, like if you're setting up a rig, what I have found is if you set up a rig and then you actually just drag it around like this in real time and it feels right, it's like, hey, that's kind of cool the way they're, you know, the acting's happening or whatever. That's usually a really good sign that you're going to be able to get the feeling you're after in your animation. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of play act this little change in attitude. Okay, so yeah, this is a little too much of a squat, I would say. So let's just double check that. But this is why I like the plastic tool. I like, and now I want to let her land a little bit. So there's an up and a down, right? It's quite quick. Okay, but I mean, I love to draw, but at the same time, I actually have a little bit of a disaffected feeling about drawing when there's not a good reason to. In other words, if we have tools like this, like the plastic tool, that let us get the story and the characters and the acting without having to redraw, then I'm going to favor that, because not only is it more efficient, but the actual results tend to be better too. So there she's got her eyebrow up, and when she gets to here, it's down, but the one thing we need to tweak here is the she's still got her like squinty suspicious eyes going on. There's the whites of her. Okay, so her eyes are actually, she's just got a hole in her head. Okay, I don't mean that Tianara in any sort of disparaging way. Here you go. Here you go, baby. There. Okay. So now I'm going to zip in a little closer. And see if that feels about right. Okay, and see how you got a double take there? That's not right. This should be, so I'm going to hit Control X, because if I hit Control X, it'll actually ripple edit it and move the next cell up to fill in the empty space. If you hit delete, that won't happen. But if you hit Control X, it will. So, yeah, let me check something here. So here you go, Razlad. I'm gonna make this pretty quick, but these are by no means the definitive settings, but on the output I'm using a a constant bit rate, not a variable bit rate. 2500 kilobits per second. Keyframe interval in seconds is 2. I don't know if that could be optimized at all. Quality is preset is quality, profiles high, look ahead is on, psychovisual tuning's on. So recording, I think that's actually all that matters in the output settings. Under video, I am actually output scaling to 720 by, or 1280 by 720. Under advanced, I have my stream delay enabled. The idea here is that if we lose our connection, not only will OBS reconnect automatically, but it will also introduce a delay into the stream, so that when we reconnect, what you see as the viewer begins from where it left off to when it disconnected. Now in practice, is that really actually working the way it's supposed to? I'm not sure. From something Darren T said the other day when I was live streaming, that may not actually be happening. So a certain amount of sympathy, you might say, in her attitude. And so it looks like we do have linear interpolation turned on. So what I need to do is copy this keyframe, and then let's paste it in here. So she goes bump. Now what I think I want to do, I'm going to take a little risk here. And what I did right there, by the way, Razlad, is I deliberately put it on the screen. So if you wanted to, you could always go back to this video and freeze frame it, you know, and you could kind of see the settings, and that may be helpful to you. I don't know. We'll see. Okay. I don't want global key turned on. Darn it. That actually makes me a little bit annoyed, because having global key on is single bow. Okay, sometimes that's very good. Usually it's a really good idea to set a global key at the beginning of your animation, so you've sort of established your initial positioning or pose. But after that, you almost always want global key turned off, because then what happens is, if I set a key for one bone and then I go forward and then I set a key for another bone, it turns out that you'll keep it'll keep reverting back to the previous pose, because the animation for the bone you didn't move actually has a position baked into it. It's hard to explain. It was explicitly illustrated, I think, yesterday, because I ran into the problem. So what I want to do here is, on this pose right here, I want to take her forehead, or her head up here, and settle this down a little bit, because she was getting distended a bit. And frankly, it should really be set here as well, because she's actually a little bit stretched out there. So sometimes, you know, you sort of notice flaws later. You know, it's really amazing, actually. You know, you're focused on one thing, and then all of a sudden you realize that there's something kind of going haywire that you completely missed. So now we're going to go ahead and get her eyebrows into shape, and I would say this is actually a little too extreme now. I'm being very, very cautious to not violate TNR's characterization. Okay, so and actually, I actually have to say, let me jump back to this drawing. I have to say, she feels pretty fouled up to me, actually. And I'm not sure that I can bounce back from that without tons of fiddling for no good reason. This might be a really good example of where just plan B. Okay, boom. Okay, this is not too bad. This is not too bad. So I'm going to actually smack this down here and then allow a 2-frame animation like this so that she can, this is really, there's some subtle acting going on here, and I have to just kind of feel it, you know, as far as the timing and, okay. So I would say, I'm going to cut myself some slack here to just get this timing figured out, this acting, because even if I wind up redrawing her, the process I'm going through right now still informs the what I'm going to ultimately do in terms of timing and stuff. So actually, I think I succeeded here. One thing I want to look at though is this. This is a cool thing. If you go into your build skeleton mode, you actually can at any time add new bones. And I am going to, in this case, I'm going to add a couple bones over here just to see if that helps me get her under control a bit. Okay, so here, let's just see what this does. Okay, this is pretty powerful. I mean, it's having wide-ranging effects because there are not a bunch of bones over here that are kind of protecting that part of the character. So now to be safe, I need to hit Control C, Control V, copy that keyframe, and now she gets to this position. Not too bad, actually. Okay, so she would, she's going to be talking. So now one question I need to decide is, am I going to wiggle the cloth on the veil to underscore the idea that she's talking, or are we going to just let her talk and that's that, we just hear her voice kind of thing? Okay, so the actual line of dialogue is, it's an honor to bring our families and kingdoms together. Okay, so what would she do? She's evaluating her situation. So I would say here, what we actually want to do is, I'm thinking this should be more like this. Okay, so it's a little more, So yeah, how do you convey Okay, so she would go, and then, okay, and now you see what happens if you don't do global keys. Created a little more work in this case, but it's generally a good thing. Meaning what? Meaning that the only thing that changed here was the position of these, the length of these bones. Therefore, because I didn't set global keys, the actual position of the other bones they were unaffected. Okay, so now I'm going to go like this, and that's to kind of get that softening. And then she would hesitate half a second before she starts talking. Boom. Something like this. Okay, so now we have we've got to answer that question about the mouth. Okay, how would we do that? Well, I'm going to save my work just in case. And now I'm going to go back into build skeleton mode. And my sense is that if we put a protective perimeter around here, but then add a sort of a rogue bone right there, okay, and I want to continue this protective perimeter right around there. So what I'm doing is I'm creating a zone that will not be affected by this bone because it is protected, not affected, but protected by these other ones. And that will allow me to, and I'm going to actually run this all the way up to her nose area. That will allow me to wiggle this bone and have this region in here move a little bit. That's all I'm trying to do. Okay, so now what we want to do is go back into animate mode and see if now we've somehow destroyed our animation because we've created, you know, some bones are going to introduce some control where previously there might be pixels in the imagery that were being affected by other bones, and now they can't be because these new bones are in there sort of keeping that area from being affected. Hope that makes sense. Okay, so here I'm going to look at a couple things here. One is, okay, you see what happens there? That's a big influence. It shows you, frankly, how really piss poor the implementation of the bone influence in the plastic tool is, because it is pretty poor. However, that's okay. As obnoxious as it may be, you can mitigate it by, once again, adding some more bones to sort of protect things. The problem is it can turn into a hot mess, and look at there, it just did. It did turn into a hot mess. Okay, so that did not work. So I'm going to hit undo. And so it's a tug of war, folks. It's a tug of war between two extremes. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and give this a crack. So what does that mean? This is doing what I hoped. Okay, it doesn't require much at all. I'm going to go like this. I'll go 2 ahead. Well, actually, I need to go. Hang on. Delete that. Okay, at this moment, I'm going to change my prefs to constant interpolation on my animation so that while I'm doing the lip sync, it'll just jump from one keyframe to the other. So I need to go little change, 2 frames ahead, little change, and now I can't just extend it and have it loop. Well, because it would loop everything for one thing, but also she needs to talk for a bit and then stop talking. I think there might be an obnoxious joke in there somewhere, but I think I'll leave that one alone. Okay, so she says it's an honor to bring our families and our kingdoms together. So we need to actually extend this quite a bit. And again, we're now venturing uncomfortably close to the area where the amount of time it's taking to make this work is beginning to exceed being worth it. In other words, this would have been a lot quicker to just freaking redraw her. Just have an extra mouth layer and deal with it that way. So there is that to be said, but for now, we'll keep rocking. Okay, that looks pretty good. That looks pretty good. So now we're not getting the obnoxious side effect over here that we were getting a moment ago. So it is an honor to bring our families and our kingdoms together. Okay, so this might seem a little mysterious, but that's that. And then what we're going to do is we got to think about body language now. So for that purpose, I'm going to go back into my prefs. I wish I could put a hotkey on this to just toggle between linear and constant interpolation. But anyway, there we go. Okay, so now let's look at the animation. See how we're doing. Okay, everything right there just happened way too fast. I shouldn't say that. That's fine, but then she jumps into this new demeanor too soon. Too soon. As I used to say to the actors on the set, I would say, let it breathe, man. Let your performance breathe. Give it a half a second. Your tendency will always be to move too fast when it comes to acting. Well, it's just like getting on a stage and giving a talk. You know, people get on stage and they start talking really fast. Bands do it. They always play. In fact, if a major successful band is guilty of that, most successful debut album in rock and roll history, a band that absolutely sucks in concert, basically, would be Boston. And the reason they suck in concert is they don't give a show. They just walk out on the stage, put on their instruments, and start playing. There is no show. There's no sense of a performance. But worse, they always play, and I've seen them 3 times. Wait, have I seen them 3 times? Maybe I've only seen them twice. But they always play Peace of Mind, like 20% too fast. I mean, they always play it fast. It's like punitively fast. But, what are you going to do? Boston never was necessarily that great of a band, since it was really the work of one guy for the most part. Okay, yes, this is actually working. So what I'm going to do is grab the eye blink here. Let's just check a couple things. Boom, right there we should have an eye blink. So we'll stick one in there. Hello, where's my eye blink? Eye blink, where are you? There we go. And she's going to say this stuff. And then, right here, we need another eye blink. And now we're going to have a little change in attitude. Okay, so we've got linear interpolation turned on. So this might bite us in the hiney. Actually, you know what would be the smartest way to go here, I think? Would be to go back to constant interpolation and just roll my own tweens. Actually, if you don't know what the heck I'm talking about, I apologize. But for the moment, I'm just going to move forward. What I basically just said is that I'm going to control my own animation tweening. I'm not going to let the software do it for me. Hence, that's why I'm leaving it on constant interpolation, which means I've got to set 3 little keyframes in a row. And that worked. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and actually render this and cut it into the show, I think. Arguably, one more eye blink right here would probably be appropriate. We'll see. Okay, so that's that. Save our work. This is shot number 517. I already set up my renders, so boom, here we go. Now we should be able to go over to the show. So I gotta open up OBS and flip over to here. Let's get it cut in and just see how it's feeling. See if it's working. And we are again on shot 517. Render folder. Open the sequence. 69 frames. It might be a little bit long, honestly, but we can always tweak it down here at the editing stage as well. So let's pop that in there, and we'll disable resampling. And now let's just kind of sort of see what we've got. We can switch back. I'm going to have to pull back and look at this again. I was looking at the wrong screen. Okay, one thing that seems obvious to me is that why Windows 7? It's not Windows 7, it's Windows 8.1. You know, on my laptop I run Linux. Mint happens to be the flavor I run, but I'm just going to re-render that so I can see what the lip sync pacing looks like. But on the 8-core machine over there that runs Windows 10, you really get a sense of how intrusive Windows has become, in the sense of literally, like for example, this is how stupid it is. A dialog pops up literally every day that says, hey, how do you want to get notifications? You know, about updates and improvements and this and that. How do you want us to update you? And one of the options in the menu is never notify me. Never do anything. So we click never. Oh, okay. And we click OK. And then that goes away. And the next day it pops up and says, hey, you're set for never. And by the way, how often do you want to get notification? And again, it pops up every single day. it's so spectacularly wrong-headed that you can't. And again, we are getting to the point. If you look at, wow, if you look at this is the original drawing. This is before any deformation takes place. So you can see that I've drifted. I've drifted quite a ways from the original drawing, and I'm kind of feeling it. So what I'm going to do is just try to backpedal a little bit here. OMG. Yeah. I mean, I think basically, as far as being on character, it's what I've done here is mostly an improvement. But now we've got linear interpolation biting us in the hiney. Biting us. So anyway, what I find over and over is that if the animation process becomes punitively more about data management or managing the tools than it does about telling the story, then you need to kind of take a pause and go, okay, maybe this is not the greatest idea in the world. We are perilously close to that point right now, because this shot is passing the point where you could definitely make the case it would have been much faster just to like draw a bunch of drawings. But I tend to be a little cautious about that, because the quality of animation and storytelling I do when I use tools like the plastic tool tends to be better on the one hand, and on the other hand, you know, drawing, inking, and painting and coloring is the most expensive or time-consuming thing that you could possibly do. It just is what it is. So let's just see what we have here. Okay, the drift is obviously unacceptable. So I think the only solution for that is probably to get rid of... Okay, I'm going to jump back here. Yeah, her head is too stretched. I'm going to backpedal. Manjaro, huh? Yeah, I use Mint. I'm not married to it, though. I mean, AV Linux is actually a 32-bit Linux that has a custom kernel for pro audio, real-time kernel that's quite good. If a little bit more archaic from an interface standpoint, but yeah, I am going to... I'm just kind of feeling like this has gone too far. Delete. I am making the bold step of rethinking this scene entirely. It actually wasn't that bad, but I'm just not feeling it. So, screw it. We're gonna backpedal big time, in a big way. I'm gonna turn the background painting way down. I'm gonna turn off these extra levels that represent her whites of her eyes and whatnot. And I'm even going to turn this down, and now we're going to go back to, probably for some of you out there who are, you know, like animation purists, this is a good day, because we're getting back to just, let's just freaking draw, okay? Let's just draw. I'm going to turn on the old, and actually I'm going to turn this off. There's no reason for this to even be on. But, yeah. We're going to backpedal and get back to plain old animation for a bit. Plain old animation. So, B key, boop. And yes, it's going to be a smart raster level. Yep. And we need to draw TNR. Okay, so I'm using the old charcoal brush. We're going to just redraw the girl. Just catch our breath, get our bearings, and consider old school approach for this particular shot. And we'll see how it goes going forward. We may return to the other version, or the other shot, and we may not. That's the basic breakdown. I'm going to hit the S key and scale this a little bit. I actually did what I often do, which is drew her a little bit too big. Okay. And we're just going to draw these triangles. Okay, yeah, and in the original drawing, I have to say, the original drawing from the storyboard, which I'm looking at on the other screen, the way the veil came down actually looked a little better, but I guess I don't want to violate what I've already committed to in the other shots. It's not that big of a deal. So I just want to rough it in, and then we'll adjust from there. But, and it is, again, punitively expensive. You wind up spending more time dicking around than actually getting anything done. So here, I have to say, I like what I see. I like what I see. And I'm going to, since I'm doing this, I'm going to be a little more liberal with her expression and just kind of think about what I want to do here. I'm hitting the E key to erase. So I'm going to go ahead and start with this type of an expression. Boom. Now, what would change is the question. I'm going to hit the, gosh, so I want to hit the D key. Alright, I'm going to hit the D key. Okay, but this is important. I don't want to be too locked in here. What I want to do is have a slight softening in her demeanor. So I've got to, I guess I could just turn on the onion skins. I'm not a big onion skin fan, but in this case, let's do it. Okay, that got me there. Okay, so if we're going to do that, then of course this no longer works, and this no longer works. And then of course we would have an eye blink in there. So N key, boom. Blink, blink. So I'm feeling her kind of softening a little bit, almost like out of compassion for the poor prince. And then she would say her line of dialogue. So this is way harder than action. Okay? If this is like hey, good morning, Maria. If this was a where he's doing the kung fu battle against the rabbit, this was probably a year ago, and I happened to chime into the live stream, and I mentioned to him that the foot on the rabbit was actually drifting. So in other words, the rabbit was not locked to the background. The rabbit was floating around over the top of the background, and obviously you would want to motion track it well enough that the rabbit moves with the background, because he deliberately did it with a moving camera. And I mentioned that in the chat, and he immediately banned me from his channel forever. So if BlendedPlanet goes to AMB Animation, you will never see any comments he makes in the chat, because he's banned. Yeah, Ethan Becker, you know, Ethan's got an interesting thing going. He's so frenetic and high-strung, and I think a lot of young people probably dig his style of presentation. You know, I get sick of it pretty quickly, but as far as you know, tips and tricks and techniques for art, you know, he does good work. Talented guy, you know, yada yada yada. Okay, so anyway, let's look at timing. Feeling the I'm too locked in by the specific lines and contours of her characterization, which actually could wind up needing a little bit of correction anyway. So we need to kind of get back to just feeling the motion, right? Okay, so here I'm kind of gonna say she's gonna maybe turn her head. I'm gonna even allow a 3D head turn here. It's really a challenge because what I almost need to do is try to convey a little bit of a sense of kindness in her, just with her eyes, basically. You know, we don't really have much else to work with since her mouth is covered up. And so let's keep it simple. I like what I'm seeing. And frankly, over here, as I said, will this need correction? It probably will. I mean, her eyes look too dark and ostensibly too large as well. So that feels pretty good, actually. Better than this, actually. The thing that's harming this little bit here is really that it's throwing the sense of character off quite a bit because I never draw her that way. So I did it more simply because I just wanted to use basic triangles to get it blocked in. But so that's okay. I'm just gonna keep rolling with this. Yeah, so like I said, I'm not much of an onion skins guy. I'd rather roll it, and if I'm gonna do, you know, frame by frame animation, I'd rather just. Okay, what if we do? Um, I'm gonna put a hand up here, just to see. What if she actually gestured with her hand, almost a sort of a peaceful vibe. That might help. Okay, so that would probably be animated in on a separate level, just because. Just because. All right. So, yep, A and B animation. And by the way, I think for anyone that wants to learn traditional animation, basically what I'm doing here. If you're into pencil tests and you're into the Disney thing, then I think that there's some really good. I think AMB animation does some good educating. I've never looked at his course or anything, but from what I can see, you know, and he's obviously really passionate about that kind of animation. He likes the old school stuff, and so he's really made it his mission to sort of champion that. And I think Howard Wimshurst is doing the same thing. You know, they're sort of championing the paradigm, the paradigm that basically says that animation is king. And I don't believe animation is king. I actually think that the art is king. The individual drawings at the end of the day are more important than how you move stuff. it's just my personal bent. I find that moving stuff is actually pretty easy, and getting timing kind of dialed into where it's pretty good, or doesn't have appeal, then nothing you do in the animation zone is going to make any difference. It's not going to save it. Might look cool, but it's not going to engage an audience and hold their attention for some period of time. And of course I say all that with the caveat that ultimately this show may fail. It could happen. It's more of a, in my opinion, more of a market consideration though than a show quality consideration. Of course, show quality should be a given. That's assumed. That's assumed, people. Okay. All right, so Maria, I've downloaded or watched a few of Aaron Blaze's tutorials. Aaron's the same thing. Yeah, and Raz, if you like the drill sergeant thing, which I think is fine. I mean, it's just one angle. It's just one approach, and I think that if that works for you, then great. You could probably learn a lot from those guys for sure. Aaron Blaze, I'm not a huge fan of Aaron Blaze, frankly. I mean, I think he's a wonderful guy. But I mean, gosh, this is where it's like you don't really want to state your opinion. I think I'll keep my opinion to myself about, because the problem is there's a lot of people out there. Everybody's trying to do good work, right? Everybody's trying to do whatever they do and build up an audience for their own reasons, whatever those reasons are, and especially if they're successful at it, you have to respect that. So generally I can speak pretty clinically about these opinions, like A and B, talking about A and B. I can talk about A and B clinically. So I don't dislike the guy or have anything against him or want to badmouth him or anything like that. When I say he kicked me off his channel, it's just a fact. He did. I made one comment that was critical of the work he had done. And of course, remember, he is approaching his audience from the vantage point of, I'm the expert and you're not. Okay? And so I found it a little problematic with the whole rabbit thing, because I'm like, well, you got kind of a glaring error here in your animation. And I didn't state it that way. But basically, when there was one critical word, boom, he immediately banned me from the chat, and that was that. So, to me, my honest opinion is that there's definitely an ego problem there. But, who cares? Does that mean the information he's giving isn't good? I mean, look at this. I mean, here, could someone really criticize this hand? Of course they could. It's not that great. I just kind of whipped it out real quick. I wasn't very careful. And so if that's all you ever looked at, you might actually be very critical. And you'd be correct to be critical. That's my point. It's good to be critical. If somebody points out something in my work that is subpar, here's the problem. This is where it gets into sort of talking about almost like politics and stuff. The problem is if you set yourself up as the expert, let me backpedal just a little bit. I have danced very carefully around the question of setting myself up as an expert. Okay, people come to this channel, they look at these videos, they're looking for knowledge perhaps. Okay, I made a conscientious choice to say, you know what, where your knowledge is going to come from is from simply observing the real world process of the challenges that I bump into with all my foibles, with all the occasional mistakes. This very shot is actually, it could be that this shot that I will scrap it. I may throw it out and go, you know what, this just isn't working. I'm not feeling it today. It could happen. Right now, I'm kind of tossed halfway between. I think it's probably going to work okay, but I'm in my mind, I'm thinking, we might chuck this one, okay? But my opinion is, at the end of the day, um, what all those people on YouTube have not done is this. This is what they haven't done. None of them. None of them have actually created a complete, finished show that can go to market. None of them. Not one. Howard Wimshurst hasn't done it. Ed Tadeo hasn't done it. AMB Animation hasn't done it. Aaron Blaze hasn't done it. On and on we can go down the list. Nobody's done it. In fact, not even close. Not even close. Well, but let's be realistic. What good does it do to do that if it sucks, or if the audience or if the marketplace doesn't embrace it and want to watch it? That's reality. That could happen. That could happen. So these things are inherently risky, right? So I think it's setting myself up as an expert is, if I were to do that, it would be nothing more than a strategic choice I would be making in order to convince you that I really do know more than you, which I might. But the point is, it's a tactic. It's a strategic choice that makes you feel like you're in safe hands, that you can learn from me, right? And that somehow this opens the doors and windows for you to where whatever the heck it is you think you want to do, it turns out you actually can do it, because you gain enough confidence in your own ability, and you get a few attaboys from people here and there, to where you become convinced that, yes, I can do this too. Okay? The truth of the matter is that it's always been true that you can do it. It's always been true. You didn't get that from me or from anybody else. You just woke up and realized something that had been true all along. But this is how we are, because we're emotional creatures. We need encouragement. We need somebody that we respect to say, yep, you can do it. You're going to do okay, blah, 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 blah. Hello, sir. I have a question. Is Vegas Pro good? Yeah, Vegas is great. Soda Pop. I've been using Vegas for 20 years. Every movie I've ever edited was done in Vegas. Okay? So I've showed you guys, at other times I've showed you the movies that I've written and directed and edited and scored, that are available here on YouTube and on Tubi. And all those movies, well, both of them. There's really two that have been modestly successful, but those movies were edited completely in Vegas. So yeah, there's a lot of things about this shot right now that I'm not comfortable with as far as the way it's progressing. She's a little off character here for sure. The attitude we're seeing is working okay. The jump here is too big, and there's a change in characterization. Her eyes are too close together. It's one of those things where when you first sketch it, it feels like, wow, this is spot on. It really works. And then you add a little more detail and you realize that there are flaws. And this happens all the time. Start with free software just in case. Well, if you're going to go that route, I don't really know. I mean, obviously people always talk about DaVinci, but I've had terrible luck with DaVinci Resolve. Like I've over 10 years I've installed it a dozen times, and every time, every version, doesn't matter, I immediately run into lockups and crashes and stupid stuff. So I've had very poor luck with Resolve. Ed Tadeo seems to be doing really good editing on his animation stuff with Hit Film Express. So Hit Film Express, and by the way, I had that on my system too for a bit. It's a very capable editor, not too bad, and it has some nice compositing features as well. If I wanted to go free on editing, which I did on the animation project I was working on before I was working on Salt and Light, it was all edited in Blender. I used the Blender video editor, which actually has pretty good color correction capabilities itself too. So if we wiggle her mouth, and what the question now becomes, how do we get from here to here? Are we going to use the plastic tool to sort of do a tween to get us close to this and then snap to the new drawing? And if so, how much of a difference is that going to create between one drawing to the other? It becomes very much a tug of war between whether you're going to say, let's just do everything with hand-drawn frame-by-frame animation, or are we going to go ahead and try to find a middle ground between, you know, puppet animation and hand-drawn. I'm going to go ahead and put in a tween here and kind of see how it goes. So I'm going to go ahead and pop up the drawings on either side of this one, and let's just do an intermediate one. So how would I do that? In my case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the contours that obviously are moving, and I'm just going to basically map some midpoints. Okay, so just by putting these little lines in here, I can see where things need to go. This becomes a guide, right? So that's pretty much all that's required. Here's her hair thing, so I would say her hair is going to be there. Maybe up here just a little bit more, da-da-da-da. And now as I'm doing this, her characterization is starting to emerge. I'm seeing it in my mind, right? So, boom, 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 boom. Okay, so there's that. Here's this contour. So I'm tracing over it so I can feel where it is now. That's where it ends up. So there's our midpoint. Boom, there it is. Okay, same thing again here. Here we got a contour here that ends up over here, so the midpoint. And obviously you don't have to do a straight midpoint tween. Okay, but in this case that is what I'm doing. Okay, so it looks like this contour doesn't really change position too much. Right, so you got basically a U shape there. So we're going to maybe move it a little bit. So what about her veil? Her veil's coming over here, and it goes to there. So kind of split the difference. Yep, so there's that. All right, so now we've got I want to draw a line. Okay, so you've got a contour that's got a little curvature to it here, and no curvature here. So splitting the difference, it's going to have maybe just the slightest curvature. All right, eyes. Now with a tween, with a tween that's a one frame tween, we have a lot of latitude to on the drawing by comparison to a drawing like this one where we're going to actually land on it, and as I like to say, the audience is going to be able to digest what they're seeing. For a one frame tween, we can, as I also like to say, get away with murder, really. So let's block it in. I'm not going to tween the hand because the hand should just be animated on a different level and animated separately anyway, so it's probably only going to be drawn one time. There's no need to tween it. Okay, eyebrows are up, still up, basically. So we'll kind of stick with that concept. Straighten these lines out a little bit. There's a bit of a point there. Yeah, sometimes what happens is I'll get a tween in there and realize that the tween kind of captures the character better than the previous drawing, or I'm sorry, I should say the next drawing, and then I'll wind up erasing the next drawing and making a variation on the tween. But you can see how her eyes are wider here. They're kind of growing. They're kind of growing, and that's not a good thing. And the reality is on this tween, probably her eyes should be closed. You know, it's that quintessential case where somebody's gonna tend to blink when they move. They tend to have a blink happen. So this is a fun exercise, you know, it's traditional animation. My sense is that if I really wanted to, um, make a living from YouTube, I would definitely do some things very differently from what I'm doing, because what I'm doing doesn't tend to build a large audience because it's really very few people. Unfortunately, I would say there's very few people that actually want to do the long, hard, boring work that animation is. Very few people. Um, it's such a niche interest that there's just not that many people that would want to do it. Really, it's like raising ferrets or something. I mean, yeah, there's people that want to do it, but it's a pretty small audience. So I've given zero attention to hashtags, to descriptions, because my focus and my attention is on making the show. That's all I care about at this point. That could change in the future, but at this point, that's all I care about. I want to make the show. So for that reason, my content it's a little bit cumbersome. I mean, you got to sit through a lot of crap to get those tips and tricks that are so useful. But the problem is that if you get Ethan Becker's tips and tricks, let's say, and then you sit down and try to do a real project, what you're going to actually do with your minutes and your hours is exactly what I'm doing here. It's going to be a long, hard process with many mistakes made. You'll learn a ton. You'll get better at it. You just will. And most of what will make you a craftsman will not be from the tips and tricks you got from so-and-so. Although it might help. It might wind up, some of it will work its way into your vocabulary in a permanent way. But probably to a large extent, you'll kind of do what I've done, where you'll sort of figure out your own way of working. And the point is, okay, then the reality is you probably would, and so I think the danger is this. It's easy to get caught in a loop of spending months and even years just taking tutorials and learn, but never actually do anything, right? That's the problem. I mean, if you're happy doing that, it's perfectly fine. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. But I would venture to say most people that are caught in that loop, probably that's not their goal. Their goal isn't to be the perennial learner who never actually produces anything. And what you'll find is the people that produce something did so through a certain amount of tenacity, where they basically did what I did, and they said, by gum, I'm just going to figure out a way to do this, and I'm just going to get it. I'm going to do it. I'm just going to do it. And it was actually the decision point that made the difference. It wasn't the technique. It wasn't this methodology or that. It was the decision point to, by gum, I'm going to do it. And then what happens is you immediately, like the first day, you run into something in the process that takes everything you thought you knew and tosses it on its head. I kind of talked about this yesterday about starting a business. So what happens if you we were talking about software, and we were talking about the waterfall method and the idea that you try to have a design or a plan. What is a design? A design is a plan, right? So you try to have a plan for your project or for your business or whatever that's bulletproof, because you want to feel secure that you've got it all figured out before you start. So whatever you're going to do basically involves tons and tons and tons and tons of preparation. And then the very first day you start really actually working on it, you find out that key tenets of your philosophy about how this was supposed to work don't work. It's like it always happens. Like the first day, the very first scene you go to work on breaks all the rules that you thought were going to carry you through. And so, and what do? What you probably do is you get discouraged and you go back and you spend another month taking tutorials and hope you'll find the magic way that's going to all of a sudden make it easy. It's not easy. It's never easy. There's nothing in life that's easy. The universe, this is my personal belief, is that the universe will always test you. No matter what your goal is, it doesn't matter what it is. It might have nothing to do with animation. Whatever it is, the universe will test you. It'll say, "Are you really sure this is what you want? Do you really, really want this? Okay, let's find out how bad you want it." And you'll find you'll get tested. Because the difference between those who get something done and those who don't usually is resolve. It's just the people that, it turns out the people who got something done didn't quit. That's about it, man. All right, so let me look over here. Magix owns it now. Yeah, Magix. You don't like Magix, huh? Back in the day, I used the Magix video editor for a bit. I used it on one client project, and it was pretty good because at the time it actually had better GPU acceleration than Vegas. But that was, gosh, that was 10 years ago probably. 2010 era, 2009, something like that. And I used to have the Magix Music Studio because basically that was just a rebranding of, oh, what was it called? Not Sequoia. Sequoia was the expensive one. It was still pretty expensive, but I can't remember what the Samplitude. So Magix essentially had a private branded version of Samplitude, which actually had most of the features of full-blown expensive Samplitude built into it. I kind of respect Magix because Magix is clearly they understand that their primary role is to market and then support the tools that they sell. I don't think they've ever created a software product ever, probably. Hey, Golden Slime. Okay, so is this working or is this not working? Well, I don't know. After an hour and a half, I'm kind of surprised. I'm actually, when I just play it back, I'm actually pleasantly surprised. I don't think this is helping that much. I'm just going to take it out of there, and I'm very, very shocked. But you know what this is like? Let me tell you what this is like. This is like, if I go back on my edit here, this is like this shot. Once I quit trying to use a rigged approach and I simply did frame by frame animation just straight ahead, I came up with this. I'm going, okay, yeah. When I quit trying to be all, when I accept the fact that we're gonna do it the hard way, I usually wind up getting better results. And I honestly, if you look at the timing of her change in attitude here, she softens, and then she kind of just leans into it and then says her lines of dialogue. I'm kind of feeling like this is pretty good. Now, is there room for a little bit more tweening? Probably. This one's a little questionable. But boy, at 8 frames a second, I tend to think probably a tween is just going to slow things down. Now here, it's debatable. One thing I'm seeing though is probably across the board here, we should maybe raise her eyes up slightly and possibly shrink them slightly. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'm actually going to hit Control C so that here, this is going to be dangerous as well. I'm going to go, I think I'm going to erase this. We'll see how this goes. I may regret it, but I'm going to hit the S key and then Control V. And because I hit the S key first, it's still selected, which is what I wanted. So that now I can go like this and just kind of dial that in a little bit. So that actually feels pretty good. And now the tweens are working better because the alignment on her eyes is improved. Now this one is definitely out a bit. So now let's do what I said earlier, but not with the whole drawing. Let's just do it with the pieces that are problematic. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to grab this area which I think looks good in this drawing, go Control C, and then I'm going to go to this drawing, erase the part that is a little egregious, hit the S key, and then hit Control V, and then just replace it with the better version of, the better of the two versions. And by doing so, I've sort of guaranteed that the tweening is going to work better. And indeed it does. Now it looks like really smooth, right? And then we'll just introduce some eye blinks in there. But on balance, I would say we've got a pretty good shot happening. If anybody wants to weigh in and criticize, go for it. I would love to hear it. So Maria says, but you can do and learn simultaneously. I agree. It's kind of like we were talking about. Instead of the waterfall approach, I mean, if you take the waterfall approach and apply it to not software, but some other project of this nature. And by the way, I'm on the wrong screen. Sorry about that. Yeah, thank you, Maria. So I made those changes. I cut and pasted the eyes, and I don't think you guys saw that. But what it did was it really smoothed things out here. These tweens look really good now. It's also arguable that her weight should perhaps fall down a bit more here, because it's like she's softening to go ahead and say her dialogue, but her whole body is actually going up, which seems a little strange. So now I'm going to grab this. Okay, so if you take the waterfall approach and apply it to any other project or business or anything, it basically boils down to the idea that you say, I can't really start until I have everything in place, because then I feel confident that I'm going to succeed. Well, the problem is that in the real world, there is no such thing as being confident or being truly able to be confident that you'll succeed. Mainly because none of the preparations are what made you successful. If you become successful, it's not all your preparations that made you successful. If you're successful, what made you successful is that you went ahead and moved forward, and then when you started running into the inevitable obstacles, you overcame them one by one. Nothing glamorous about it. Nothing to undergird your confidence. In fact, quite the opposite. Every step along the way will cause you to doubt. That is, in fact, the whole point. The whole point is for you to be confronted with doubt, because it's only those who overcome their doubt and persevere that deserve to succeed. Now, that's a strong statement. Somebody might take issue with it. I totally understand that. I'm trying to simplify the psychology of it for general consumption here, but I think on balance, this is probably a pretty accurate rendering of what you're going to encounter out there. So let me just kind of allow myself to chase this rabbit even further. Okay, so I want to look at Soda Pop's comment, because Soda Pop usually has some pretty interesting ideas. Razlad effed up the export. What do you mean? Oh, on your animatic. Got it. Right now, you'll get it figured out, dude. You'll get it right. Okay, so Soda Pop says the Disney guys do not do their own projects because they aren't used to not having a big team, and also having to sacrifice some workflow to be more economically feasible, like in anime. Okay, let me read that again. I want to really digest what you said there, because I'm also thinking about, well, why are you saying this? What's kind of your point here? Not to suggest that it's not a great point. That's what my mind is doing right now. I'm saying, okay, so what's your point here? Disney guys don't do their own projects. Basically true, I think. A part of that is probably because I remember when I worked for a jingle company in 1991, and I remember my friend Sparky. I asked him what kind of music he played when he got home at night, just on his own time, and he said, "No, I just fix up my house. I basically do home improvement." And ultimately, he went on to become a home builder too, actually. But the thing Sparky told me was, I don't work on, after I've worked on music, producing music for 8 hours or 10 all day long, I really don't have any desire to work on music when I get home. So those Disney guys, that could have something to do with it too, I would think. When you're slaving over the old drawing board all day long, you probably are about sick of it, when you go home. All right, so but they're not used to not having a big team. I would say this, the camaraderie aspect, the idea of having all, and of course it's more difficult with COVID-19, but the idea of having everybody in the same bullpen, if you will, to use the old Marvel Comics parlance, being able to bounce what you're doing off of people, I think that's really, really powerful and valuable. Frankly, Um, it would be wonderful. My opinion is if everybody that ever tuned into my live stream actually began their own animated cartoon project, whatever it is, um, and indeed this may be happening over at Discord or something, actually. Um, but you know, if everybody was humble enough to be open to how do we actually get to a level of reasonable quality on all aspects of whatever it is you're doing. Let's say it's a short film or animation, you know, something that's only going to be a few minutes long, maybe. It could be like a commercial type thing too, because that's certainly um, there's plenty of market demand for that kind of thing, right? Or it could be something long like this. It could be a complete show. So now you've got a lot of things that you got to get dialed in. You got to write a script. You got to know what your story's going to be at least. So maybe you skip the script and go straight to storyboards. That's fine. That's just a choice. But it would be cool to see how a community dynamic, which you don't really get here because it's kind of one way. It's one too many, you know. In other words, from feasible like in anime. Well, correct. And my argument about Disney from that standpoint has been picking mostly on their middle period, like in the 60s, where to me I think they faltered. One of the reasons I think they faltered is they came to believe that animation was going to carry the day. And through the 1970s, they found out um, that animation does not carry the day. If you have chimped a little bit on your script, if you've been a little bit lazy about your cast, in other words, you're going to use, well, I can't remember the names of the actors, but let's say on the Don Bluth side of things, you had guys like Dom DeLuise, and it's like there's never going to be a Bluth movie without Dom DeLuise doing one of the voices, right? Or whoever. Um, Sebastian Cabot, Pat Harris, because he was popular as Baloo, let's just reuse him as the Prince John, or I'm sorry, Little John in Robin Hood. So they got a little lazy about some things, and then what happened was they made movies that really were not very successful. Now, is there a lot of things to respect and admire in those movies? Yeah, there's some good stuff there for sure, right? But it was only when they kind of threw everything out and started from scratch with some inspiration that came from a completely different direction, which of course is the Broadway musical, that they found their way again. But even that had a life cycle, lasted about 20 years, and then it kind of petered out when CGI happened, and Pixar sort of became top of the heap. So, all right, it's the equivalent of our playwriting workshops. That's right. Now, to be fair, I am a loner. Okay, I am a social person, but I believe it or not, I'm actually mostly an introvert. I'm a strange, in terms of my personality, I'm a strange mix of introvert extrovert. Right, that's right. The problem I have with what you're saying, Soda Pop, when I don't actually hear that from any. I've never had somebody say that to me, but I'm sure what you're expressing there, that there's plenty of people that have that opinion. I would guess that probably Daniel Lara feels that way. I would guess that Howard Wimshurst feels that way. Um, or even AMB Animation, because these are people that are embracing the old school, Secret of Nim being a notable exception, where animation just did not carry the day at all. And in point of fact, I get more enjoyment and entertainment value out of watching Fairy Tale than I do out of watching, pick your Disney movie. The Disney movies are fun once in a while. Um, and most of them there's something to like there. I should probably get going on ink and paint here so I'm not like boring everybody to death. So let's kind of rock and roll. So I'm going to create another level. I'm satisfied with the pencil test, so I think we can move forward here. I've got my smoothing turned up pretty high. And we're not going to dick around here. We're going to get right to it and be bloody quick about it, by gum and by golly. One thing you should be aware of is in the view menu, there's this thing called the fill check, which lets you know if you've closed your shapes. Now, to be fair, this is what I should do. I want to do something right now that's radical. Tahoma 2.1 has some kind of gap closing feature, so I'm going to deliberately put a hole in this. I am deliberately putting a hole so that the fill should not work. So I'm hitting the fill tool, and I'm going to learn right now how well this works. So it says gaps, close, and fill. We'll try that. Wow. Whoa. Okay, guys. If that continues to work as well as it just worked, I'm going to tell you that is a big reason why I will be in Tahoma more than Krita going forward. Wow. Okay. Jeremy Bullock, if you're out there, well done, sir. Well done. That right, what I just saw is the best gap compensation I've ever seen in any software, including that thing they have in Blender 2.93. That is outstanding. And for all my bitching about software from time to time, I have to say, well done, sir. Excellent, excellent, excellent. The bane of animation software is ink and paint. And the big bane is usually the fill tools. To get gap closing right is just, oh, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Jeremy and team, whoever's responsible for implementing that. I can't compliment you enough. Excellent. I want to compliment just as vociferously as I criticize when I, complain about software development. Because that's impressive. I'm going to try that again. Hitting the fill tool. Boop. Look at that. It's got like 17 holes in it, and it's still filled perfectly. Wow. Guys, I'm not joking. I'm not exaggerating. I'm not putting on a show here. I'm serious. That is kick fanny. That is really good. Ha, my goodness, I'm almost speechless. But of course, that's impossible because I'm never speechless, right? That is diggity dog impressive. I am stunned. Stunned and pleased. Wow. I cannot even believe it. Oh, thank you guys. Thank you devs responsible for Tahoma 1.2. You just made a happy camper out of me. Because like I said, without a doubt, the most tedious, error-prone, frustrating, snaps you out of your creative groove thing that you deal with on a project like this is fill operations. That goes south, it leaks all over the place, yada, yada, yada. OMG, I am stunned. I am happy. I am impressed. That was really a pleasant surprise here today. So, Tahoma 1.2. So far, by the way, I really haven't found any too much to complain about in Tahoma 1.2. The ability to grab your Tahoma 1.1 preferences and then import them all accurately and well seems to work pretty well. Here's another example of something in Tahoma 1.2, by the way, that could be useful for some of you. Is if you go to your eraser but switch it to segment, I should be able to draw a line right here. It didn't work, so it doesn't always work. This probably will. Yeah, see, there it worked. But the idea, I want that line in there. But the idea is that it will intelligently clean up sort of these random lines where you overshoot a little bit. Pretty useful. I tend to erase in freehand mode and just kind of roll my own cleanup, but it's all good. It's all good. So let's snap back out here. No, I'm freaked out by that. I am freaked out by the gap closer. That is just probably what I just saw is probably the most significant, palpable improvement in animation software across the board that I've seen in the last 2 years. Now that's my very jaded opinion because I've been so frustrated with the shortcomings that I've observed in typical fill tools, but wow. I mean, the idea that you can actually just draw loosely and have fun with it and know that it's still going to fill properly is really cool, man. Really cool. So if Darren, if you're out there, make sure you tell Jeremy when you see him on the Discord or whatever that I said, damn, well done, sir, well done. I don't know if Darren's paying attention or if he's on right now, but this is a one-frame tween, so we've got a little bit of latitude on our accuracy, but I don't want to be sloppy just to be sloppy either, right? So, try the motion path thing right on, man. Okay, Razlad. Yeah, and OpenToonz as well. Good feature. The old ads of anime software had that feature too. Yeah, I know CSP has it for sure. Motion path with Animate tool centering. I'm trying to imagine what that would be, or I could imagine. I mean, does it have some? Well, I won't try to ask you to explain it on the chat because obviously that would require a ton of typing, but I'll get around to it. I mean, like I said, one thing, anybody who's watched me for a while has noticed one really glaring change, like a big deal change, which is that for the last few days, you haven't really seen me in Krita very much, even when doing background painting. That's a change, and it is because, by and large, you know what's the irony of all that? After all the jumping through hoops I've done in the past year or more with Blender, both 2.79 and 2.8 plus, with Krita, yada yada yada. The funny thing about it is, when I started doing animation, which was in 2018, I basically said, okay, I'm going to learn how to do this. I'm going to figure it out, because I'd always been a cartoonist, and I kind of felt like, this is something I can do. And of course, I'm a filmmaker. I've made movies. And I'm a bit of a loner. Why not do a cartoon? Why not do something I can literally do all by myself other than the voices? And I can still do some of the voices. Well, when I started out, I was using OpenToonz. I mean, I was doing everything in OpenToonz. And I've come around full circle. It's really kind of funny. It just goes to show that all that jumping through hoops, and Valerie, my wife, she laughs about it, or laughs at me because she's like, yeah, duh, is that all the jumping around trying to find an easier way has all been pointless. There is no easier way. It's all hard, right? File, save. Now, I deliberately left the face off because I wanted to go back and I wanted to get everything blocked in first. But gosh, guys, isn't this cool? Hit the F key. Let's try the frame range again too, by the way. So we're doing a fill, and I do want a frame range. Now, when I tried this the other day without doing freehand mode, like lasso mode, it didn't work. But when you click frame range, what's supposed to happen is you just click. See, that's not supposed to happen. It's not supposed to paint that. And then you click on the last frame, and then it's supposed to fill all the ones in between. So why it doesn't work with standard normal mode filling, I don't know, and I have a feeling that's something else that probably Jeremy wants to know, because it seems like a bug to me. Create a motion path in the node editor button. Okay, alright, dude, I'm going to try this, just because why the heck not? Why the heck not, indeed. Okay, so what SodaPop's saying is create a motion path in the node editor button. Node editor. By the FX button, click on the node. By the FX button, click on the node. So you must be in the FX editor, not the stage. I hope. And if I'm making a mistake, gosh, we've got a 27-second delay, so it's going to take 30 seconds for you to realize I'm doing it wrong, unfortunately. Create a motion path in the node editor button. What, I'm just going to look here in the effects and see if there's something that seems to apply to motion, because it doesn't seem like it would be an effect, although I could see where maybe it would be. It's not going to be light, matte, image adjust, gradient. It's not going to be one of those. Maybe distortion, I suppose. No. So you'll have to maybe point me to a tutorial. There it is, motion path. Okay, so we have a path. All right, and what we're going to do is we're going to take, let's take this column that I hid earlier, and we'll take, so it's going to be this one. Okay, so, and forgive my ignorance here, people. I have never even looked at this. Okay, create a motion path in the node editor, okay, which I did. And then draw your path. You can edit it with vector tools. Okay, it seems like I have seen this before. So now, do I need a vector level to do that? Or where do I save motion path, load motion path? So I need to have a path over here. And I remember looking at this a long time ago. Here, my question I'm asking myself is, does this actually require a new item called a motion path, or is it a type of level, or is it just a vector level where any vector shape can be used as a path? Right, okay. The button with the swirly line. Oh, there it is. Okay, got it. Thank you. New motion path. Okay. We'll get rid of this one. Okay, so we added a new motion path. And I'm just going to take a stab here and assume that this connection makes sense, which it looks like it doesn't. Why the path is routed to the camera, I'm not really sure, but clicked on the brush and made a path, so I'm assuming that there's a vector level called for here, so I'm going to just create a vector level. And brush, okay, and just to keep things clean, I'm going to assume we don't want these items on. Okay, so there's a path. So now my curiosity is whether the column 7, what I don't know how to do here is how to map, how do you map a shape to a path, or I'm kind of pissing in the wind here. I'll tell you what. I will look into it later, I promise. If anybody wants to post any more comments to help me clarify what the steps are. And all I can figure is, see, it doesn't do me any good to do, I can't do freehand, because if I do freehand, I cannot, I mean, this is a closed shape. I really wish this worked in normal mode. Looks like a geometry line. Can you click directly on the path node and try again? Click directly on the path node, and then I assume here in the interface, having clicked on the path node, you're able to draw the path. Is there a tool for that? Control point enter, pinch, seems like it'd be up here. Okay, so if I actually select the path, wait. Yes, there it is. There's the answer. No, okay, okay. Now why did, it affected the camera. I don't want that connection. Actually, I don't want that at all. What I wanted was this. So I've got the direction wrong here or something. I don't know how to connect, but okay. So now you can obviously edit the nodes, right? Got it. So how do I connect a level to the path? Pan, click the path. It should look like a geometry line. Right, so we got that solved. Sorry about the delay. There's like a 30-second delay in the stream, so it takes you guys 30 seconds to actually see where I'm at. In the node editor, then draw. So I got that. Now my question is, I've got a path. There it is. How do I map the path to a level that I want to have follow the path? It seems to me I did this a long time ago, though, in other versions of Tahoma and or OpenToonz. I don't. So what's new about it? Let me look back up here. With the Animate tool centering. So you must click the drawing first, then create the path. Right, so we've got the path now. The question is, how do you map something to the path so that the path becomes the, activates the animation for that thing? I've tried connecting the usual obvious ways, and nothing really seems to work. I've tried going from, I've tried going to. It was connected to the camera. I disconnected it. It seems obviously crazy that it would only connect to a camera. The path must be connected to a drawn level. Okay, Peter Pan. The path must be connected to a drawn level. Okay? This level, character, is a drawn level. And now I'm going to make it so we can see it just in case there's something wacky about the... Alright. Okay, and now the path must be connected to a drawn level. So the question I have, quite simply, is how do you connect it? The only place it would appear a node connection can be made is, okay, it could be from the top. It looks like it would be from the top. That doesn't work. That doesn't work. That doesn't work. Everything I do doesn't work. Sorry to hear that, Raz lad. You'll figure it out. Just add center. Okay. Just add centering to the drawing connected to the path. Okay. How do you add centering? I literally have no idea what that even means. Add centering to this level. How? Where? With what? I have no context at all. Level settings? Add centering. Delete that path. Okay. Thank you. Okay, got it, buddy. Delete that path. Thank you. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. Grab this, and now grab it. Okay, there we go. That's it. Thank you. All right. Reset center. I assume that's probably a good thing. And then here, we'll come back over here. We hit the brush tool. No, we don't hit the brush tool. Wrong. Grab the path. Draw the path. Okay, we got a path. All right, and now it's going to animate. I get that. It's not going to animate. I thought it was going to animate. So, and it will lock to the line drawn. Got it. Animate tool. Oh, gotcha. Okay. So I hit the A key. Animate tool. Right. I mean, obviously, I've always used the center thing, but I don't think that's what you're talking about. And we obviously can. So, looking at my nodes. Could be useful. So, yeah, I'm sorry to be absolutely so ignorant here, but like for me, I'm going. I don't even know how to. Because I've never done it. I don't even know how to activate telling. Okay, so the centering thing is what's new. The centering thing on the Animate tool is what's new. The idea of moving an object along a path is nothing new in OpenToonz or Tahoma, and yet I don't even know how to do that. I literally have no idea. I've connected the, as you see in the schematic, this layer is connected to the path. There is a path. If I grab the path. Okay, so I drew it, but now it doesn't look like it's got those. Doesn't have those doggone doesn't have the little lines that kind of indicate there's some animation that's going to happen here. Oh. Okay. Now I understand. Okay, so let's hit the Animate tool and go like this. And I can feel it. I can see what's going on. Got it. Okay. So you're basically starting a start point and an end point. And what it's doing for us that's awesome is it's actually going to lock the center, which I could totally see where that could be useful. But I'm definitely flying blind here. And by the way, I've got another stupid mistake, actually, in the sense that I don't have linear interpolation or any other kind of interpolation turned on. I've got it set to constant, which means we're not really going to see it. Yeah. Up, stop, undo, go here, Animate tool, move it, stop, undo. No matter what I do, I have to click back to the level, and finally it accepts what I'm trying to do. It was wanting to insist on selecting the camera level. Oh, come on! My gosh. Really? So I'm on this level. I hit the Animate tool. I animate it. I go forward to set another key, and it switches back to camera? Really? That's what you're going to do? That's enough to make me crazy. Crazy, people. All right. I sound like Ethan Becker. Okay, so now we have that, and then the question is, well, what about the centering? How does the centering thing? Now you have to guide it from start to finish. Put the centering dot on the picture. Okay. I will do that, sir. Center. There's the centering dot. And it will connect to the path. Right. So just for kicks and giggles, I'm going to move the center and see if that like animates. I think I'll stop there. The purple top girl looks connected to the path. No, yeah, she is. She's connected to the path. I'm just not sure what the automatic centering is really doing for me. So I'm gonna stop there and get back to work here and say I'm gonna explore this more later, because once I wrap my head around it, I'm sure I'm probably gonna find some cool uses for it. But meantime, I ain't getting nothing done. So boom, 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 and I'm gonna give up on the frame range thing. Looks to me like this drawing here needs a little bit of attention. But thanks everybody for the tips and tricks here, the help kind of figuring it out. Okay, not too bad, not too bad. Now we can deal with her face. We fill this. I think it would be quite prudent. Because we're going to have to wiggle her, like, mouth around. The only thing that wouldn't be, maybe, that maybe could be put back in here would be her hair. And I suppose, to a lesser extent, the, just checking the chat, see if I, hope I didn't tick anybody off by choosing to give up for the moment on the new feature. So what time are we doing here? We're at 2 hours of live streaming and haven't made amazing progress on this drawing. And by the way, I actually think I've got my colors backwards here. Oh, come on. Okay, that's interesting and disappointing. This is an area that is closed, other than the fact that there's this gap here. Is our gap closer turned back off? No. Close and fill. I'll crank this all the way to the hilt just to see what happens. And that's not good. Okay, our romance with the gap closer tool just got interrupted a bit, maybe. Particularly because it looks like just using it one time introduced anomalies in the color, as you can see here, which is pretty much disastrous, particularly because hitting undo doesn't do anything. So, like I said, our romance with the gap closer may have just been interrupted more than a little bit, because it appears that if the gap closer makes a mistake, there is no recovering from the mistake because the undo doesn't work properly. So, yeah, that's too bad, but it is what it is, so live with it. Boom. And this region seems determined not to fill no matter what. So now we're kind of back to the way fill operations have always been. It's like nothing you do works. And so this is actually really sad and ironic, because I think what's going on here, I could be wrong, but I think what's going on here is this. This little spot right here is not a line. And in a sense, that's actually strange, because if the fill tool gap closer has an option to fill the gaps, but it also has an option to close and fill the gaps, then you would think that the process of this fill happening successfully, which it did, would mean that under the hood what's placed over this gap is a line. That's what you would think closing the gap would do. And if it was a line, then one would expect this level or this fill operation to work perfectly. And the reason you would expect it to work perfectly is because there's a line here. In the past, if you actually had this, like you painted it with the paintbrush tool, the V key, with your color, which is an area, not a line, then what would happen is you'd have color there, but you wouldn't effectively have a barrier that has closed that gap, and so then you'd have the kind of problem I'm seeing here. So this is somewhat bad news, because it appears, let me see what happens when we render. Yeah, the anomalies that have been introduced are even there when you render. So that's really bad, because what that means is, even if I go like this and fill this, okay, so now what's happening is, oh boy, the romance has already ended, unfortunately. That's really sad, because now I'm hitting undo, and look what's happening. Nothing. I mean, nothing will undo anymore. So this is quite bad. I'm seeing a lot of things break here in a hurry. The gap closing doesn't actually close gaps, it appears. The fill tool is just as problematic as it could possibly be, because having successfully filled the head covering, because this gap closing didn't actually close the gap, it merely put color there, there is still a hole. And with that being true, not only will this area, which is a closed shape, not fill with any tool, but it's actually leaking out here, and then everything that's already been filled that has leaks in it that I put there deliberately, obviously, to test the tool, is now leaking out onto the whole page. So basically, we've got complete disaster, basically. I mean, I hate to say it. So the only solution I see is to reload Tahoma and hope for the best. Well, as I say, we had a couple minutes of real joy there, real happy. This is great. Couple minutes. Okay, so the only solution I see is to use color 0 to erase. So we need to go to normal mode and erase. And that got rid of all the color. Except this, which is the type of anomaly I've literally never seen in any version of Tahoma or OpenToonz. So that's weird. Okay, so we're going to... I'm going to turn off this guide layer for the moment, so we can really focus in here and see if we can figure out what's going on. Okay, so now I have uncovered part of the problem, and this is my fault. So that's good. I'm glad it's my fault. Okay, so part of our problem is that if we look at our art, this area was in fact open. I thought I was checking that before I restarted Tahoma, and it looked to me like I had gone all the way to the edge, but clearly I hadn't. So that's, as I say, that's totally my fault. Let's fix that. Let's rectify that right now, and then sort of try all this stuff again, because maybe our romance, or I suppose to be more accurate, our bromance, will be able to continue unabated. That is what we hope, but we're not going to be able to test it unless we get these darn gaps closed. Okay, so now let's go back here into the X sheet. What we're going to do is we're going to fill the headdress, which, by the way, this is actually supposed to be a little darker color. Okay, so fill tool, normal, gap closer, close and fill, boom. Okay, that sort of worked, but it's not as pretty as last time, and this is more like what you normally get from gap closers, actually, on other software that I've seen. So let's kind of dial it way down to maybe 5-ish pixels. You know, not too bad, but then it leaks out. Okay, so now our gap closer is behaving more the way I would have expected most software to work. And it's okay, but you sort of have to then go in with the freehand tool and fill tool, freehand, and manually, you know, fix the glitches. So now the question is, will this area down here fill properly? If it does, we're doing okay. Ready, go. Ah, it did. So the whole problem was totally my fault, and again, I think our little bromance with the tool is probably not quite as intense as it was a few minutes ago, but we're still looking pretty good. So with that, I am going to take a break. I'm going to take a break. Actually, I think I'll log off. I've been going for 3 hours. Well, okay, 2.5 hours. I think I'll just take a little break. So I'm going to allow this animation to loop. What I said I was going to do is put her face on a separate level. But let me think about that for half a second. this is always a tug of war between, do we want to bake more information into the drawing, which means when we want to animate something, we just need more drawings, versus breaking it up into layers. Um, in this case, the answer is probably, it's just right there in the middle. I think I'm going to go ahead and just finish inking and painting her here, I think. So I think that's what I am going to do. Actually, with one caveat, why don't we leave these lines off? Because if they're gonna wiggle for her, you know, when she's talking, then I suppose we probably might as well just put that on a separate layer, because that's definitely going to be animated individually. Okay? And with that, I'm going to go hang with my beautiful wife for just a few minutes and take that break. I'll be back in 5. tasty beverage. And back to work. Had to leave for a bit. Hopefully didn't miss too much. Oh, I don't know. Ciao, Razlad. I don't think you missed too much. I gotta check the... I guess the color on her veil is kind of my option because, well, didn't we... We did see it back here. I'm looking at another shot here real quick to just check my color situation. Yeah, okay, so it's basically the same color as the garment. What do we have here? It looks like some mail. Doesn't look particularly interesting. Doo-doo. Okay, and as I said, we're going to go ahead and for the moment, we're going to animate her. I'm thinking actually the eyes, eyebrows, and lines on the veil we're going to leave in a separate layer. Okay, having said that, this needs to be a little more saturated and a little bit darker to jibe with what we've had earlier. And those guys probably need to be slightly lighter. Her skin color is actually a little off as well. Her skin tone does trend a little bit towards the slightly darker and slightly more olive than a your traditional peach colored sort of. We'll deal with shadows on a separate vector layer as usual. And with that, maybe we'll turn the background back up and kind of see what we have. Okay, not too shabby. Okay, so let's just jump to another layer or level to use the proper Tahoma parlance. I didn't like that. And then I'll go in and darken these lines shortly. I mean, I say darken. Typical Dave dyslexia moment. I said darken when I meant lighten. I'm giving a little bit of curvature here to the top of her eyes because that's going to be more consistent with her characterization. So yeah, you didn't miss too much there, Soda Pop. In fact, in all candor, I didn't realize you were gone. Okay, this, I'm going to just kind of go like that, and now we'll go ahead and dial that a little bit more in. Let's zoom away the heck in here so that we can draw sort of accurate circles-ish. Now this is risky behavior because I'm so zoomed in that it would be easy to put the eyes in. Acting I've done. Meaning, you know, this is not going to turn out to be the best shot that ever showed up in the show. That I did not like at all. And I definitely think that a eye blink is going to be called for here as well. So, a little bit of a somewhat compassionate expression. Not sure that was the best move I ever made. I will come back to it. Now, yeah, let's just redraw it here. right now I'm trying to be really vigilant about Tianara's characterization. Obviously that's a one frame tween, but what I probably should do here is what I did before on the sketch, which is grab this, hit Control C, go here, hit the S key, hit Control V. Ah, come on. I guess it doesn't matter. I can just lasso the whole thing, so that's cool. But that's going to give me better continuity from one drawing to the next. And then obviously she has a fairly lengthy line of dialogue, so there we go. Here we've got to add a color for her very green eyes. We really need a specular in those eyes. We also need the whites of her eyes, which is going to be slightly grayed. And then we're going to need the little mark on her head thing, which I believe I have correctly identified as a thingy dingy in other videos. Oh, I forgot to draw the darn thing here. Okay. B key. Okay, cool. Fill tool. Okay. We'll worry about eye blinks later. For now, we'll just kind of get things dialed in. Question. Do we want to have a burst and then going back and adding the pupils? Whoops. I think we're on track here. The eyes are probably a little bit light, but happily we can always mod the colors after the fact. So now I'm going to hit the fill tool. I'm going to go in freehand mode so that I can just draw a lasso around her pupils. And I can see a little flaw in the pupil there, by the way, that we're going to have to address at some point. Ooh, that did not work. Come on. Okay, I keep circling it and it doesn't fill. Don't be annoying me. Don't be annoying me. Tahoma. Please. I beg of you. I beg. That's going to be a little tricky to fill for sure. But like I said, I think we're on track. This shot's going to be okay. So I'll wind up using the paintbrush tool, as they call it, for the specular on her eyes. I'll come back and fill those gaps that are glitchy here shortly. That's okay. That's okay. Definitely got some areas missing. Yeah, there's definitely some icky stuff there. So I want it to be over top of everything. And that's a little large, isn't it? Let's go with 3. 3 pixels. Boom. Looks like the sweet spot is 4. Believe it or not. There you go. There you go. And we still got a couple things we need to clean up here for sure. This part is a little unfortunate. I don't know that painting over it's going to do. Oh, it looks like it will do the trick, so that's good. So, cool. That's good. Erase, I would say. Just clean that off a bit. Hit the N key. And rewind. like I said, you can definitely see where some eye blinks are going to be quite helpful. So, your line work is looking nice. Thanks. I like to use Kakani in a similar way to use Krita with Tahoma. I've never even heard of that, actually. Kakani. Okay, so here, what we're going to do is, I would say, actually let's just make a duplicate and then hit the S key and move this a little bit. And now what I want to do is just kind of toggle between. Yeah, I don't like that. That did not work. That's too much of a change, methinks. So I'm going to turn on the onion skins. This has to be really subtle. Really subtle. So I'm going to give it a tiny rotation and then turn the skins back off. That's okay. I think that worked. Alright. Boom. So I think we'll give her literally half a second there. This is going to be number 4. And again, we'll worry about eye blinks shortly. So this is going to be... I need to review her line of dialogue. Okay. It's an on. Okay. Undo. Control C. Control V. Alright, I'm going to actually delete that one. And we may have to extend this a bit. Let's find out. Okay, here, I think I'll just do this the simplest way possible, which is to hit the D key and I guess what we'll do is we'll erase, because that'll reveal the flesh tone underneath. And once again, we're just doing a one frame blink situation, and typically it helps to tighten up that line from the lashes. Okay, and then obviously we've got some garbage right way down here that we need to fix. That would be whites of the eyes, fill tool. We probably can just snake it across there. And yeah, I don't know if you knew you could do that, but you can kind of scribble and get the normal fill tool to go ahead and fill in some of those little holes. Okay. And I think here I'll just go ahead and hit the, I guess I'll hit the D key and do the same thing again. Well, actually, I think I'll put in the, I'll tighten up this line first and then go back in and rough it. And then go up close and just see if we can. And I'll tighten that back up even more with the ink brush or the ink color. B key, little bit denser there, little bit cleaner there. Scribble, scribble, scribble. And here, actually what we should do here is just hit delete and grab shot number 7, smack that back in there. So she's got the blink before she moves. So the only thing about this shot I'm not liking at this point is that I'm kind of feeling like I really want a little bit of motion here at the bottom. And I almost feel like we should just reverse these. I am going to do that. So we've got the tween. So we got 3 and then 2. Okay. So let's just take these guys out for the moment. And then we're going to do 3. Oops. Sorry. Boo boo. This really needs to be over here. I made a boo boo. So it'd be 3 to 2 here. Sorry. 3, 2, which of course means that likewise should be 2. And then, did we have a blink on top of the 2? Yeah, it was 7. It was 7. So here we need actually 7. Hey, you. Come back here. 7 and 2. Diggity dog. Come on now. Boom. Stretch that out to the bottom. And let's see what we've got. You know, like I said, this is not a bad shot. It's not the greatest work I've ever done, but it's okay. Trust me, if I thought it was amazing, I'd be shouting it from the rooftops. But no, it's okay though. It's okay. We're doing okay. So I'm gonna hit the B key, and let's start dealing with some shadow action here. If we're not locked to the camera, you can see that we've got, well, there's an infinite canvas for vector layers, so sometimes that's useful. For me, normally it's really not that useful, but it can be sometimes. Do 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 do. Not bad, not bad. It's all coming together, baby. Ooh, that's not coming together. I feel like the smoothing's a little bit hot. Let's turn it way down and see if that helps. Yeah, for sure. I definitely do not prefer to have the smoothing. The accuracy, let's crank the accuracy and see what that does too. That's interesting. Let me see what that does. What if we turn the accuracy down? Yeah, that's not very helpful. It doesn't seem to actually make a huge difference one way or the other. But that is horrible. That was pretty bad. Well, the more explicitly you draw it, the better it turns out. So that looks pretty good. Looks pretty good on balance. And so let's go to here, and then here. I say we just redraw it from scratch. I don't think we're going to try to preserve anything from oopsie poo from an earlier shot. Okay. So there we have a bug. So you can see we've got a little bit of a vector shape in there, but yet there's no keyframe. So that's a little weird. So we're going to use the time-honored technique of ignoring it, and as you can see, it disappeared. So, okay, fine. We'll take it. We'll take it. If you're a little freaked out because the shadows are all bleeding like we're coloring outside the lines here, trust me, that is going to be rectified shortly in the schematic. That is not a problem at all. And if you're also freaking out because the shadows are like so pitch black that they look stupid, you're correct. But again, that's going to be rectified shortly. So, there's our tween. So we want to get down to 3. Little bit more shadow there. Shadow there. Whoops, that didn't work. Hit the Z key. Thank you. Thank you, Tahoma, for respecting my Z key. So once we get the post-production effects plugged in here, this is going to look beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Whoops, that was too much. Sorry. Getting sloppy here. Getting in a hurry, which is understandable. I've spent a long time on this shot. And I'm getting a little feisty. Getting ready to be, you know, have a finished result to look at and cut into the show. Boom. Okay, and last shadow layer, or last shadow cell, I guess would be the more proper nomenclature. And then we'll just kind of balance out the way these guys animate in the obvious way with toggling. And then of course the shadows from the earlier shots we'll just repeat here at the end when she kind of reverts back to the earlier pose. That didn't quite work. Little hiccup there. Little hiccup there. Okay, that's looking okay. She talks. And then here, actually it's still more chatter. So I guess here we need, I'm guessing here, I think what we need is it this one? I think it's this one. But let's find out. Nope, it's the other one. Oh, fiddle-dee-dee. Delete that. And there, we got that. That's a blink, so there we go. Alright, hit F3, go into the effects schematic, and we're going to take column 7, and we're going to add insert effects, multiply I and O. That's going to be the foreground. The background is going to be column 5. That's going to be set to roughly 0.13, methinks, for this particular shot. Clipping mask is turned on. That's what we want. And now, what does it look like rendered? Okay, yeah. The eye stuff needs to be on top. Okay, cool. So there's that. And we'll just kind of do a little quick preview. Again, not horrible. There is one thing I want to change. So this is where it could be a little punitive in that I'm going to have to use the, yeah, right here. Shot number 4. I want to take this and I want to edit this kind of aggressively. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to just erase this and redraw it. That's not quite what I wanted. What I really need to do is kind of get that curvature in there properly. Yeah, I think that's better. And because of the way I'm doing it, it should update just fine, I would expect. So I'm going to hit the F key, fill that in. I think that probably did the trick. Yes. Oh yeah, that's better. Holy cow. Definitely better. There is one other thing though. On this frame, this is the one where I got sloppy. And I need to do this in the X sheet so I can see what the heck I'm doing. I'm going to hit the eraser. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just use my eraser to clarify where that line that follows the arc of her nose should be, so that I can then go in, re-ink it. That ink line's a little thick. Gotta be careful here, folks. Gotta be a little bit careful. Alright, and then we need this color. Boom. Okay, that's way better. Oh yeah, much better. Okay, cool. So L key. So now I'm actually starting to like the shot. Now my misgivings are somewhat less. There is one thing I would like to do in all these shots, which is get the outline back here going on her hairline. I'm kind of feeling like I'm missing that. I'm going to deliberately add a slight little bit of noise there. Little jut out. I haven't checked the chat in a while here, folks, because I'm kind of in the zone, so forgive me if there's some conversation for which I am glaringly out of the loop. Out of the loop, I say. Yeah, the thing I mentioned way earlier that I had been fiddling around with actually Blender 2.79 again on my laptop, and I found out, believe it or not, Blender 2.79 actually has a way to, when you're drawing, I didn't know you could do this, and it's actually a new add-on in Blender 2.8 Plus, but that allows you to take the axis that you're looking on and actually rotate the canvas so that you can, like we do all the time here in Tahoma, you rotate it so that you can draw better. You actually can do that in Blender 2.79. Very few people know that. It is a closely guarded secret. Very closely guarded secret. So this is shot number 517. Well, we already put this in the show, didn't we? So I'm going to hit Control-Shift-R and just jump over to the show and see what the heck happened. Alright, so it's good software for vector drawing and painting. Has some really cool features, bit pricey like Moho, not like TV Paint Harmony. Yeah, well I have I've got Animate Studio Pro, I think version 8. Because back when I really started doing animation, that's what I was using. And if I'm really wanting to do good vector art, and certainly if I'm doing like a layout for some sort of graphic design thing for a client or something like that, I'm going to tend to favor Inkscape. I really actually think Inkscape is quite a capable vector drawing app. Okay, not bad. I'm actually wondering about I don't know if I quite got the pose where she's talking. Let me skip this over to the other screen again. We'll put it on the big screen and take a peek. That looks good. That looks fine. That is a little questionable. So what I'm going to try to do, realizing lately that the vector inking is not bad, so you could convert, which makes Tahoma a good standalone. Yeah, and I don't use vectors for ink. I've tried it. There's pros and cons. If you could ink with vectors and then actually paint you know, do your fills on a separate layer would be pretty useful. Okay, so what I'm wanting to do here is, this is a little bit of what you do in Krita with the liquify tool. What I'm going to do is grab this little region and then just tighten that up like so. You can kind of hit control, and I think that's actually going to do the trick. Hit the fill tool and fill that back in. And then maybe just to drive home what's happening here in terms of the cloth, just put a little hiccup there. That is probably going to be better. I'm just going to render that and see. I'm thinking I probably got it. Ah, there's a hole in it, but yes, the drawing's way better, but there's a hole in it. So okay, we'll fix the hole and no big deal. That's where having procedural tools is quite nice. Yeah, right there, you see that? Okay, no big deal. Fill that. Probably want to use the freehand fill tool and just go like that. And then just for completeness, I'm going to hit the B key and go in here in this little corner and just make sure we're tight as can be. And I would say we're done. I would say we're done with this shot. It's a pretty long shot. You know, big dialogue thing. So, little moment of compassion, and she says it's an honor to bring our families and our kingdoms together, and then she kind of comes back to that position, and now we're going to get back to the prince. So let's turn the preview off, come back here, and with that, I'm at 3 hours, so I'm going to go ahead and quit, take a break. I'm ready for a break, go work out or whatever, and yeah, time to pump some iron. So I'm going to stop streaming, and yeah, and of course that's right. Actually, okay, so I will say that Soda Pop's spot on correct. If you're going to use vectors for ink and paint in Tahoma, this would totally be my recommendation, is use the vectors, do your inking, because then you get some advantages like snapping, for example. So if I had a vector level here, one of the advantages it gives me is that I can, well, I probably shouldn't have these options. Actually, if we just killed that one. But turn on snapping so that you can, and let's go into this mode here. So I can draw a line, and then it will snap to it like that, which is really nice, because then you're knowing you're getting close shapes. Problem is that the fill tool operations in Tahoma are still a little winky. So what's not a bad idea at all is to do your inking with vector levels, and then you also have the ability to toy around with these different vector effects, and then take the vector level, and I have to remember here, I think it is convert, no, not convert to vectors. What you do is you grab the cells, not the header, I believe is the way to do it. And if I'm correct, then you can convert the vector to a smart raster, and it keeps the vector level there in case something's wrong with it that you're not happy with. But then you can, okay, and why that just disappeared, I don't know. So that's a little weird. But normally my experience with it has been successful. So, oh, I know, because it's, okay, I know why. That was stupid. All right, it's because I'm using the infinite canvas. So I'm going to hit the select tool and pull all this in here, and then grab the cell and convert. Hit the C key to edit those vectors and change the shapes if you didn't dial it in quite right. You get the advantages of snapping. So that's what I would do, is I'd go ahead and do it with vectors, but then convert it to a smart raster for coloring. That's my preferred way to approach. So Inio-san, see you later, dude. I like the line tool in the geometry guide for outlining with a steady weight. Yeah, I do too. Actually, the geometry tool is pretty good. So with that, I am going to sign off.